Hello and welcome to the International Conference on Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation, year 2022. We are Nadia and Jason from the School of Business, and we are presenting a research on digital transformation and organizational change with focus on employee engagement. The objective of our research is to investigate based on systematic literature review done on organizational change and digital transformation, and provide the insight in connection with employee engagement. So this research will be supported by exploratory interviews of employees partaking in digital transformation, particularly in the education sector. So we're looking at the impact on the employees in the changing workplace, physically, digitally, psychologically, and legally. Okay, so these are some newspaper cuttings related to the pace of digital transformation. And what we have noticed is that during the pandemic, there was acceleration of digital transformation, not by choice, but by necessity. And change, we understand, is constantly happening. But what's interesting during the pandemic is the pace of change is very, very fast, and it affects employees, especially older ones. And on the employer's part, there may not have been time to consult the employees prior to the implementation of digital transformation, because they have to pick up the pace and continue business as usual as fast as possible. So that's on digital transformation. Okay, the next, okay, this was a cutting from 1928. Change and digital transformation, industrial revolution is not something new. It has been happening since the early days. Yeah, so you see that since 1928. So there is, okay, why do companies make the change, and what's the history of change? It happens mainly from the technical and technological perspective. It is a change that is affecting employees and giving a little bit of stress point, affecting unemployment, because the machines are designed for efficiency and employees are not consulted when they have to change together with the organization. Okay, and there is also a trend throughout the years from the 1920s to the 1950s to the 1970s, 80s, even until recently, that when technology is introduced, most times the employees are expected to participate in the implementation without prior consultation, and hence there is that feeling of non-involvement or feeling disenfranchised, yeah, because they were not involved, and yet they are expected to make use of the system and be more efficient. So next, okay, so what is digital transformation and what does it mean for business? So technology is incorporated, and then when technology is incorporated, the organization makes a change, and the change is always from the strategic perspective, when to improve efficiency, to meet the customer demands. Especially in the pandemic, we see a lot of this where businesses transfer their platform to digital platforms so that the customer can keep connecting with them. So they want to be also ahead of the competition. So when this technical change happens, organization changes, the culture changes, and there is also this mismatch of adaptation in some cases, because there is a technical introduction, and then the human element happens by the way. Yeah, it does not happen sometimes with proper planning, because the introduction of employee engagement is done at a later stage. So the second last sentence there, this is in terms of the result. What's the result of digital transformation? All this investment, all this technical implementation, what's the result of it? Actually, many companies, and when CEOs and CTOs were interviewed, they consider that their level of success is about 20 to 30%. So we're looking at about 1/3 of success rate, which could be better. So some of the obstacles that were identified were digital fatigue, inertia, and cultural issues, which interestingly connect a lot to human elements. So that's digital transformation and business. Okay, so we'll look at next on the magic formula. So is that a magic formula for transformational success? So can businesses transform better? Okay, so this was a paper from 2021. So the mention by this author is on infrastructure. So on the top left, focus on infrastructure. Top right, focus on the customers. That is focus on experience and simplicity on the processes. And also there's a focus on creativity and innovation. So perhaps what is needed to improve the success rate of digital transformation could be employee engagement. So perhaps if employees were consulted, would they be more willing to participate in digital transformation and make use of the technology more willingly? So that's on the magic formula. So in short, the magic formula may not necessarily be purely technical. So we are looking into the possibility of engaging the employees in the process.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. So as Nadia has highlighted, historically, we've gone through this trend on focusing on the kind of the technical strategic rather than the human strategic. So what we've done in our research is we've identified a gap in the current literature and a current gap in terms of the kind of the emotional and social aspects of the employee in the environment. So here we've got the example of follow these market leaders. Be like Domino's, be like Walmart, be like Tesla, be like Capital One. Focus on the efficiencies. Focus on the infrastructure, focus on customer personalization, focus on targeting Generation Z, new markets, etc., new opportunities. But interesting, who are the individuals that deal directly with the implementation of infrastructure? Who are the creative sparks? Who are the ones that are dealing directly with the client or the customer? Who are the ones that are doing the data analysis? Staff, humans. Okay, with some assistance from AI, but essentially, we haven't been, if we focus of these industrial revolutions, if you look back and say we've got about a 1/3 success of digital transformation, maybe we need to focus more on humans to increase that transformational success. So in the next couple of slides, what we've said is the kind of the importance, what employees bring to this equation. Then we say the importance of, or the consequences of neglecting them, and then coming out with some recommendations based on some exploratory research on what employees say would make them more engaged and then less likely to exhibit inertia and more likely to contribute to organizational success. So what we've said here is, why is the employee important? Because the market's moved. We've moved from our transactional relationships. You pay money, employee works. It's more than that now. There is more of a social dimension, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes. The way we work has changed. It's now working from home. Workplace anywhere is now becoming a well-used phrase. We're thinking about mental health, anxiety, onboarding back to the workplace, the vulnerable employee, work-life balance, making the employees taking their life back. So it's no longer 24/7 working for an organization. So this dynamic, it's moved on. You know, that after the COVID-19, as we end this, as we head towards the endemic, we've got this situation where employees are going, yeah, I've got more choice here. You've got the gig economy. I've sold products online. I've sold it on Facebook. I've been buying more products on Lazada. I want to change. I want a career change. So we've seen the great attrition, which is highlighted here in this slide. Big issue, and it's being picked up by employment law. There's now in September, there's going to be some changes in how we work. So the employee is going to be becoming increasingly important because they're changing. The market's changed because of COVID, or not because of COVID, but because of the situation. Employees have been forced to adapt. So it's no longer business as usual. So I think we've kind of got to look a little bit at this, how the employee has changed and what they've done and during the pandemic. So this is kind of underlying the necessity to look more at the role of the employee to make digital transformation a success. So historically, there is a gap in the literature. And as we move forward, we're saying there really needs to be more of a focus here on the employee. Because why? They will become underproductive. They will become disenfranchised. They will feel marginalized, left out. So this is where, you know, we're getting some of the qualitative themes coming out here, where they don't feel part of the organization. So if they don't feel part, and they're thinking about a lifestyle change of the work-life balance, and there are now viable alternatives. You know, you could, in the gig economy now, people are now reevaluating, are they going to be a slave to an employer now? A lot of this phraseology is being used. So now employers are now looking at things in a different way. So there has to be certainly more consideration and more consultation and more embedding of the employee dimension. They're more certainly aware of their rights and psychological contract violations. If you don't involve them, they don't feel part. They may do more in terms of work to rule. They may think a little bit more about what is my purpose. They may begin to question their role within the organization and think they're better off somewhere else, which again links back to why people are leaving in this great attrition, not only to go to a competitor, but to actually leave the industry altogether. The increased development of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial spirit, the disconnect with leadership, the failure that, or the perception that they are not valued or are getting the necessary care when they come back to the workplace. So other aspects have become necessarily less productive. You've also got the aspect of cost. If they leave, you've got to train someone else. And it's also the knowledge that's lost to a prospective competitor or a new rival if they set up on their own. So there's a lot of aspects here of the reasons why employees are so important to be engaged and consulted with any digital transformation, because loss of productivity, the opportunity, loss of extra work if they only work to rule and they don't do that extra effort, absenteeism. They might begin to, well, I don't feel well today, so I just won't bother coming in, because they just don't feel the love within the organization. And something else which is equally as concerning, employees have had to upskill and really have to develop their skills. So if you think about the education sector, for example, they've had to learn new digital platforms, they've had to learn new skills, they've had to get new certificates. They are now very valued and highly employable. So Another reason to involve the employee in a digital transformation, because it's that push-pull. They are tired, fatigued. You know, we spoke earlier in the slide about inertia, etc., and that fatigue, because they've had to learn a whole new skill set. So they may be, I don't feel valued, so they kind of pull back from the organization. And then other organizations are attracting them, going, hey, we value all your certificates and all the efforts that you've put in, whether it's in in the education sector or another sector. So there is another risk, in addition to the costs, the absenteeism, and the lack of productivity. So there are solutions. So based on the literature and in some exploratory interviews, we found some interesting insight into what would make them feel more valued, more engaged, and more of an active participant in digital transformation. And the key themes were: we need our immediate manager to be inspiring. We are in control of our own ecosystem. It's not the leadership. It's my immediate ecosystem, because that's the individual that I work most closely with. So if that is a manager who is inspirational, is caring, has got compassion, empathy, a lot of the softer skills, they will feel more engaged. They want to be reassured. You know, it's like a leadership has made a decision. There has been a strategy and a vision change. They want reassurance from the immediate manager. Is this okay? Is this good for us? Yes, fine. They'll buy into it. So that's quite an interesting insight, because if you look at the literature, they talk about leadership as in vision, not necessarily that kind of intermediate or immediate line manager. So that's quite an interesting insight and can be done very quickly. It's getting that family and bond together within the particular business. In this case, it's education. The workplace culture, the space. Never underestimate that colleagues have been working at home. They want a comfortable space, which is with their friends, with their colleagues, which is a space that they can enjoy and be creative, be inspired, and feel part of the organization. I say ecosystem. That is the employee's ecosystem. So it has to be one which is a favorable one to that particular employee. So it's not just about the workplace culture. It's not about the gathering. It's also about the workspace and feedback, constantly being asked for their feedback, even though they've got nothing to say. It's giving them that opportunity to provide feedback, which was highly valued by the respondents we spoke to. I've mentioned social. We have moved away from this transactional. It's not just about money now. It's more about care. Colleagues are coming back with mental health problems, anxiety issues, stress, burnout. These are all common themes. If you look at the literature, we did a talk recently on attrition, and these were key things that came out. So we need to focus more on the social and away from the transactional. More control, more empowerment. Now, this may seem contradictory, but they're wanting to do more work, but it's not about the work. It's about being recognized for the work that they do. It's if you don't recognize and value the work that they do, the employees will feel more disenfranchised. So at least they have that sense of control. I keep going on about the ecosystem. Employees kept saying they can only feel control of that small part which belongs to them. So if you give them control, they give on something in addition to their role, you're expanding their ecosystem, which gives perception of control and happiness. You know, let's be honest, it comes into the working space, the culture, the community. They want to be happy. If you get career growth, you get development, you get flexibility in working, you're going to be happier, and that's recognised by the government and the legislation that's going to come into play very soon. Said their identity. They want a sense of belonging. Who am I? You know, I'm just a person that's working for an employee. I'm a number. No, you're actually part of, you belong to something. You belong to, you know, Nadia and I both belong to the School of Business. We both belong to a community, a family. We rely on each other. We depend on each other. That is our ecosystem that we control. And it's, I could speak for the both of us and say that certainly we get a sense of control, empowerment. The love within the school is there, and that's what keeps us together. So these sort of things, we have an identity. You remove someone's identity, you disrupt their ecosystem. They then begin to question why they're there, and that then leads to perhaps a level of attrition. So that's just some of the key themes that have come out, and are also supported by the literature. What we're seeing here is there is a real importance on focusing on the employee. To not engage with the employee, you're going to keep getting digital transformation failure. So there is a real necessity, not only in terms of ringgits, in this case in Malaysia, the cost, but also in terms of employees' well-being and retention. So I think in terms of these successive industrial revolutions as we're hitting Industry 5, businesses have transformed at a huge rate, you know, a real sense of urgency and accelerated pace. It's important for every business, but it's important for every business to acknowledge the role of the human and the person involved in that. How do you feel? This is some takeaway for you. Just think about your own business as you're sitting there listening to this video and going, how do I feel about digital transformation? Do I feel part of the revolution, or am I simply just watching from the sidelines as this revolution passes me by? So some points there to take away. So thank you. Thank you for your attention. We were Nadia and Jason. And thanks very much. Hopefully that gave you some food for thoughts. Have a wonderful day. Take care.